What's this? A letter for me.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Great Sports Through the Mail Thursdays. Today I'm going to open 3 envelopes and we're going to jump right in and just see what we got and what sport we got. Alright, this first one is not postmarked. This is one of those rare occasions where the Postal Service just puts the slash through the envelope and it's not postmarked, so I don't know exactly where this one's coming back from. So let me just rip that open and we will see. Alright, this is postmarked, I guess, from Tennessee, I want to say, is where I sent this. Former Atlanta Falcons / Houston Oilers head coach Jerry Glanville on 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you can see, he used a silver Sharpie on the darker cards, so that's very cool of him to do that. Shows up a little bit nicer with that darkness there. Trying to get that glare from my light off. There we go. Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about Jerry Glanville. Jerry Glanville was a very colorful character during his coaching career. This, I guess, technically would be considered a dual sport success because not only was Jerry Glanville a head football coach and assistant coach, of course, for many years, but he also used to race in the NASCAR series. His mentor was Dale Earnhardt Sr. We'll talk a little bit more about his racing career, but let's first jump right into his football career before we go any further. So, Jerry Glanville. Jerry Glanville played college football at Northern Michigan University. He played linebacker from 1961 to 1964. After his college football career, he went into coaching almost immediately in 1967, where he became a defensive coordinator for Western Kentucky University. He spent 1 season with the Western Kentucky before he got promoted to Georgia Tech, or took another job with Georgia Tech, I should say, where he spent from 1968 to 73 with that organization as the defensive coach. From there, he got his first job in the NFL, working as a defensive assistant, special teams coach with the Detroit Lions, which he held that position from 1974 to 76. From there, he got the job with the Atlanta Falcons from 77 to 1982 as an assistant coach. 1983, he spent with the Buffalo Bills. Then in 1984-85, he took an assistant job with the Houston Oilers. Well, during the 85 season, he was named the head coach of the Houston Oilers. He held that designation for 4 seasons, 1985 to 89, and during the era, the team that he was known famously for with the Houston Oilers was the House of Pain team. This team, of course, featured young quarterback Warren Moon, who would later, become a Hall of Famer. They were pretty successful under Glanville's tenure. However, they did not win, the Super Bowl. And after the 1989 season, Glanville was let go, as the head coach. And almost immediately, he was offered the job with the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons, at that time, featured superstars like Deion Sanders, also Andre Rison, guys of that type of capability. But one of the most famous things with the Atlanta Falcons that Jerry is known for is his disagreement and assessment of Brett Favre. Despite Jerry's wishes, the ownership of the Falcons drafted Brett Favre. Favre did not, hardly get any playing time under Glanville's tenure, and instead of letting Brett Favre play for the Falcons, they chose to trade him, almost immediately after drafting him. Yeah, Favre, of course, went on to win, played 19 seasons in the NFL, so that was kind of a boo-boo, all around for the Atlanta Falcons by making that mistake of trading Brett Favre. So his record with the Falcons was not as, they had hoped. His first year with the Falcons, they went 5-11. His second year, they made the playoffs, going 10-6. But in 1992 and 1993, they both had a 6-10 record, both of those seasons. So he was let go by the Falcons, and after coaching with the Falcons, he moved on to coaching at the University of Hawaii after taking a break. He had a break from 1994 to 2004 where he didn't coach anywhere, and I want to say that was when he was focusing more on his racing career and also maybe doing some TV work, analyst work. But in 2005, 2006, he coached at the University of Hawaii. After his tenure at the University of Hawaii, he went to Portland State University and coached there. Up until 2009. Then in 2018, he decided to coach in the Canadian Football League as a defensive coordinator with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And according to his Wikipedia page, he is going to be a defensive coordinator for the new league that is coming in, the XFL, in 2020 with the Tampa Bay Vipers. So anybody that views my channel, if you guys live near the Tampa Bay area or you're going to go to see an XFL game with Tampa Bay, you might spot Jerry on the sidelines there, and if you got any trading cards of him, you might want to consider bringing those along and asking him to sign. But all in all, Jerry Glanville, in his 5-year stint in racing, he appeared in approximately 27 races over a 5-year period. This was 1995 through 1999. So I would explain what he was doing, after his coaching there. He never won any races, nor did he ever appear in any top 10s. 18th was the best that he ever did. So after the 1999 racing season, he retired from racing. He raced in not just NASCAR, but he also did ARCA. He raced different types of races, I guess would be the best way to put it. Trucks, cars, you name it. So after his coaching career in the NFL and after his racing career, he retired, and I think he did some TV work again. But obviously, as I mentioned, he's going to be doing some work in the XFL. So be sure to look for him on the sidelines in the upcoming XFL season in 2020. All right, this next one is postmarked from San Diego, California. And it's pretty light, so looks like I only got one card back, which is fine. But one's better than zero, as I always say. And that is from former Philadelphia Eagle, Chicago Bear lineman Mark Nordquist. Originally, I'd sent 3 of these, I want to say, in the mail to him. However, he chose to keep a couple of them, which is totally cool. I've always said, I'd rather get one returned to me than none at all. So if he felt that he needed to keep a couple cards for his collection for his grandkids or other fans, that's perfectly cool. I want to say that all 3 of the cards were the same. It's been a while. I don't remember. So if you write Mark Nordquist and you get one of those back, odds are it might be one of the cards that I sent them. But anyways, Mark Nordquist, let's talk about him really quick. He was a 5th round selection out of the University of Pacific, which is located in California. He wasn't a big time draft pick or anything. He was picked 124th overall in the 1968 draft. Going into the 1968 season with the Philadelphia Eagles, he played from 1968 to 1974 He played guard and center on the offensive line for the Eagles during that era. After the 1974 season, he went to the Chicago Bears from 1975 to 1976. So all in all, he had a pretty solid, NFL career, and of course he had a very solid collegiate career as well. But he appeared in 111 games. That's an easy number to remember. 1111. How many games you played? 111. Pretty easy to remember that number. And he spent 9 seasons, as I mentioned, in the NFL. The majority of them with the Philadelphia Eagles. It looks like he basically played in every game, from 1968 to 73. In 1974, his last season with the Eagles, it looks like he missed 2 games. Then back in the 75 season at 30 years old, he played in 14 games. But in the 76 season, he only played 1. So my guess would be that at the age of 31, after spending 9 years in the NFL as a lineman, that maybe he got injured, that 1976 season and chose to retire after that. I am only going on assumptions based on his stats, but that would be my guess. So thank you very much, Mr. Nordquist, for signing, and I appreciate that, and I'm very happy to add that to my collection. Alright, so we got one more here, and it is postmarked from North Texas. And this is one of my favorites growing up as a kid, and that is former Dallas Cowboy, Oakland Raider, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Raghib Rocket Ismail on 1, 2, and this is my favorite card of him, 3, him dressed in hockey gear, appearing in the classic 91 Classic Draft hockey set. And I always thought this was a cool card. I remember seeing it in the magazines back when I was a kid, and I thought, what the heck is Rocket doing wearing hockey gear? So I happened to get this set, a little while back. I'd seen that Rocket been signing through the mail lately, so I decided to throw these 3 in the mail and send them to him. And I've always loved this hockey card, signed by Rocket. So I guess technically it's a hockey success, even though it's not really a hockey success. The only thing that I can say is, and we'll talk about Rocket's career in a second, is Bo Jackson in 1990 was the multi-sport, god, we'll call it. Not to mention guys like Deion Sanders, Brian Jordan was playing at the time. There was a guy for the Mets named DJ Dozier that was in the minor leagues for the Mets that was playing football and baseball. And it seemed at this time in trading card collecting, the 1990-91 era, that the multi-sport athlete was focused on heavily. So just with that being said, we'll talk about Raghib a little bit. Rocket, we'll call him, because that's easier to say. And we'll talk a little about his career. Rocket was a huge player at Notre Dame. A wide receiver, kick returner. Let me adjust the camera just a little bit so you can see those a little better. But he was a kick returner at Notre Dame and wide receiver. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. That's how good of a college football player he was. According to his Wikipedia page, the College Football News in 2004 named Ismail the number 75 best player in college football history. He was also selected by Sports Illustrated to be on the 85-man roster of the all-20th century college football team. So that tells you how serious of an athlete that Rocket was when he was in college. So with that being said, you would say, oh man, this guy's going to be a highly, huge prospect in the NFL. Well, yes and no. Well, in 1990-91, the Canadian Football League had some new ownership, and they wanted to have somebody to be the spokesperson, so to speak, to be the Michael Jordan of the CFL. And the owner at the time of the Toronto Argonauts offered Raghib an unheard of, at the time I'm saying, contract for nearly $18 million to come play in the CFL. He was projected to be the number 1 overall pick that year. And because some of the places felt that they couldn't sign him, you know, they obviously couldn't match the $18 million, you know, that the Canadian Football League was going to give him. So he slipped down to the 100th pick in the 1991 draft. And the Oakland Raiders, LA Raiders, whatever you want to call them, drafted him, and they said, you know what, go do your thing in the CFL, but if you decide to come back to the NFL, we own the rights, so to speak. So, surprise, surprise, the CFL basically could not afford to pay the contract, you know, that they signed Raghib to. And if you watch a lot of YouTube videos, I've seen probably at least 2 or 3 videos of other YouTubers that get those Canadian Football League cards and they pull the Raghib Ismail card out of there. And, you know, I don't have that card personally, but if I did, I definitely would consider sending it through the mail. So, after the CFL, he played in the CFL for a season. He was the Grey Cup, you know, MVP. He led his team to the, you know, the championship. He was the, you know, CFL All-Star, got the MVP of the Grey Cup, all that. Then after that season, he decided to leave because of financial restrictions of paying his contract, and he joined the Oakland Raiders. So with the Raiders, he spent a couple seasons with them. Then he became a free agent, I believe. And that's when the Carolina Panthers, you know, took him up. And he played for the Panthers from 1996, 97, and 98. Then after that, he spent a couple years with Dallas Cowboys, 1999 through 2001. The biggest reason the Cowboys wanted him was that Michael Irvin suffered a career-ending injury, more or less, during the 1999 season. And they're like, oh, well, who's out there? Let's get, you know, Raghib to come play for us. So, unfortunately, he got injured while he was with Dallas. He tore his ACL in 2000, and he struggled to recover from that injury. And by 2002, he was more or less finished with his NFL career, because in February of 2003, the Dallas Cowboys released him from his contract, and that's when he announced his retirement. After that, he's shown up as a college analyst on, you know, College Game Day, you know, in the early 2000s. You know, he's made a few appearances on, you know, some of those Spike TV type TV shows. You know, he has married, and one of his children actually plays for the University of Wyoming, Raghib Ismail Jr. So he is currently a wide receiver for the University of Wyoming. His brother Quadre, which is also nicknamed the Missile, so he was nicknamed Rocket and he was nicknamed Missile. That is his brother, and both of them were very similar type of players, very fast, you know, wide receivers that could get down the field in a blink of the eye. So, to wrap this video up, it's getting a little long. I want to thank Mr. Ismail, Mr. Nordquist, and especially Mr. Glanville for signing for me. Very happy to add all of your autographs to my collection. Stay tuned for my next episode, and as always, happy collecting.